Hello boys and girls, Lord Hawkeye here again, and welcome to Mindcraft. Now you may be looking at the screen and wondering, hey wait a minute, how come he's not building with digital Lego blocks like everybody else? Oh no, this is not Minecraft, this is Mindcraft. You see, since I said I wanted to do more videos talking about gaming, I figured it would probably be prudent to make a proper title for these types of videos. And, after much discussion with some friends, I ended up settling on the name Mindcraft. Credit goes to Iron Fury for that, so thanks very much, buddy. So, this is basically just a series of videos where I talk about gaming in general, philosophy, plot, and what gaming could do, what gaming does right, and what it does wrong, and all that sort of thing. And today, I'd like to talk about this. Have you ever been disappointed with a game or a series and couldn't quite put your finger on what it was? I have such a relationship with RPGs. As anyone who's watched the type of games I tend to play on my channel, you'll see that I love RPGs. I love good stories and I love being a part of them. That's what draws me to RPGs. And once upon a time, back in the Super NES era, I used to be a massive fan of Final Fantasy. Absolutely love this series. It was one of my favorites of all time, and many other Square Enix games. But that's not been the case so much these days. These days, I have often said that Square Enix is dead to me. Pretty harsh statement from a former fan of theirs, but and oftentimes I couldn't quite put into words why. What is it about their games that I don't like now that I used to love about them? And the decline, I think, would start around Final Fantasy VIII. It was the first Final Fantasy game I never finished. I played a third through it and turned it off. I was absolutely bored out of my mind. I was not motivated to continue. And I thought maybe it was the clunky battle system, maybe the characters weren't very likable. But what was it? How come I could not motivate myself to continue? Well, as our good friend Agent Smith once told us, I'd like to share with you a revelation I've had. Okay, sorry. You see, I think where this game and a lot of other games went wrong was in not setting the stakes properly. What do I mean by that? Let's take some of the good games. Chrono Trigger, that was an old classic one, and pretty much everyone who's played that game can agree it's awesome. If you don't, well, I really don't know what to say. What were the stakes in that game? The apocalypse was coming and you had to stop it. And the game set this extremely well. Like, remember back when you visit the future, you happen to come across that video of the Day of Lavos. You actually saw firsthand the world getting destroyed. The stakes were set in front of you and made very clear. You saw firsthand what would happen if you failed. And this is what motivates people to play. They feel involved when they actually feel that there's something at stake. Yes, it's all just a story and it's not real, but it doesn't matter. As long as people can immerse themselves and feel like there's something at stake, they're motivated to play. And this could overcome even a lot of other flaws. Like Final Fantasy VI. Kefka was the main villain of this game, and every time we fail against them, every time the group failed to stop him from something, it always resulted in absolute massive disaster. Especially including when he pretty much destroys the whole world. And this is important. This motivates us to go after him and stop him, because we've seen what happens if we fail, and we know that next time could be the last. And I think this is where the Final Fantasy series and a lot of others kind of went astray. Final Fantasy VIII, what were the stakes? Well, all the way up until I played, there didn't seem to be any. We seemed to be just moving around, and I was wondering, when are you going to tell me what the stakes are? And I quit because the game wouldn't tell me. And from what I've seen, even when the game does tell you, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Compressed time or something like that. I don't know. It makes no sense and really doesn't make you feel like what you're doing is important. And that's why this game wasn't very fun to play. Like I said before, this can make up for a lot of flaws. Like, look at Final Fantasy X. The game was extremely linear. There was a lot of characters who just drove you bonkers in that game. The main character especially. But I still stuck with it anyway, because you still had a sense of purpose when you played it. You saw him wreck cities, and he was a constant threat to the world. And pretty much this entire society was all built around stopping sin so everyone could live in peace. And so there was, and when you later find out that Yuna's going to die when she performs the final summoning, now the stakes get even higher. Now you're going to lose your best friend if you stop sin the conventional way. So now there's more motivation to find a new way. And this is what kept me playing. Despite all the game's flaws, I still liked it because you actually felt like you were accomplishing something as you went along. And sadly, this didn't carry on. Like Final Fantasy XI, I played that for a while, and what was the stakes? Not all that much really. You had Shadow Lord, but we barely even had a sense that he was an actual threat. Almost, for the most part, we only got the game's word that he was a bad guy almost. And Final Fantasy XII, oh, don't even get me started on that. I got several hours in, and I still felt like I felt like I was just fiddling around. I wasn't really accomplishing anything, and that's why I never even continued with it. And Final Fantasy 13, no, not even going to bother. Terrible. And I think this is something that writers need to focus a little more on. Give the player a sense of purpose. Set the stakes, and don't just tell him what the stakes are. Let him see them. Like in Chrono Trigger, you actually saw what was at stake. In one of my favorite games of all time, Persona 4. It set the stakes perfectly. Two people had been murdered by a mysterious killer, and he was on the loose, and he was now targeting your friends. You had to stop him, or your friends were going to die. This made the stakes very personal and very clear. Compare this to Persona 3, where failing to do this almost ruined the whole game. We were told we had to stop the shadows and they were causing apathy syndrome, but it never really struck close to home. You barely even got more than the game's word that the shadows were bad guys for a long time, and for that entire point of the game, I found the game boring. As soon as the stakes actually started getting raised and there was an actual lingering threat, now the game got good. And this is what keeps people playing and can make a game good and enjoyable and memorable. Even in World of Warcraft, you can see this contrast. Like, compare the two starter zones in Cataclysm, why I liked one and why I didn't like the other. Vashj'ir actually kind of had the opposite problem. There was a lingering threat, the fact that you were being hunted by the Naga and that they vastly outclassed your characters because it was their home turf, like you weren't built for the water, they are. But this game made another mistake. Every single victory you ever had, everything you accomplished, it felt almost everything you did, the Naga swiftly undid it with absolutely no effort. Like when you go through and bomb a whole bunch of Naga, you find out, oh, they're all back again. Your bombing run accomplished nothing. You get a big submarine, they destroy it easily. You go to fight to stop them from taking Neptulon, and they take them anyway. Then you go into the instance, you actually kill their high priestess, it looks like you're getting success, and then after you protect Neptulon, he purifies the water and all's looking good, they just snatch him away anyway at the last second. The problem with this is, while the Naga did make themselves a lingering threat, they were way too good at it. They absolutely undermined all your efforts. You were left feeling, why did I even come here? I could have just let the Naga do whatever they want and the result would have been exactly the same. That's taking things too far. You got to find a good balance. You got to set the stakes high, but you also need to make the player feel like they're actually contributing to the plot, that they're actually having an influence on the events. Compare this to Mount Hyjal. The Twilight's Hammer were destroying the forest and were summoning in Ragnaros, and in the end, you actually restored the forest, beat back the Twilight's Hammer, and you even drove Ragnaros back to his realm, buying the Druids some much-needed time. After I did that felt accomplishing. I actually enjoyed that. So, moral of the story to all those who write games and all that sort of thing. If you happen to be watching this, yeah, right. Make sure you set the stakes. Don't just tell us what the stakes are. You have to show us. Remember, show, don't tell. And make sure that we feel like our actions are actually having an influence on things. This is why people get so annoyed at linear games. Not merely games where there's not simply having only one path to the end. That's not a big problem. It's when the game pulls you by the nose and doesn't make you feel like you're actually having an influence on the events. That is what annoys people. It's not simply there being only one path. So, there you have it. I do hope this has helped. Until next time, be aware and be wise.